Good morning, everyone. Your morning weather briefing for this May 21st finds that there is one notable change in the forecast today, is that the forecast longer term, especially for the final few days of this month, is a warmer forecast. No longer are the models indicating some moderation in temperatures for the final few days of this month. Otherwise, no other changes in the forecast versus what I presented yesterday morning. With regards to the temperature and rainfall outlooks this morning, you can see there that for both the 6 to 10 and 11 to 15 day periods, my forecast today is a little bit warmer. Again, noting that the models are no longer indicating that moderation in temperatures for the final few days of this month. As far as the rainfall situation is concerned, you can again see that for both the 6 to 10 and 11 to 15 day periods, a less active weather pattern is indicated for especially the western Corn Belt and the plains, very much like the forecast from yesterday. QPF discussion this morning, no major disagreements versus what is shown. If I were to have drawn this map myself, like many times, I would have drawn it a little bit drier than what is shown, but I'm not going to make any major arguments against what is shown. It is still a situation where some of your better rains in this period are going to be located in the northwestern Corn Belt, with significant rains starting in that area for tomorrow night. Big rains along the Gulf Coast, especially for late this week as we start to see bigger tropical influences into that area. Day 6 to 7 day time frame, no major disagreements with this either. A situation where we are going to be starting to see things drying out nicely for the weekend period across the plain states and into the western Corn Belt. Rainfall will still be widespread and fairly common to the east of there. A lot of the details of this rainfall forecast for this time frame going to be highly dependent upon the track and nature of a tropical system in the Gulf of Mexico in this time frame. Temperatures yesterday, fairly notable temperature contrast yesterday across the Corn Belt. You can see high temperatures in large portions of the northern portion of the Corn Belt in the 60s or even just in the 50s, while just to the south of there, high temperatures in the 80s or even some 90s for the mid-south. With regards to rainfall over the last 18 hours anyway. Some of your more notable rains in central portions of Missouri, also some portions of eastern Texas. Otherwise, scattered areas of rains across the middle of the country. As far as 3-day radar estimated rainfall is concerned, again, as I noted in the video yesterday, the most surprising thing about the weekend rainfall was the lack of rainfall in South Dakota, far northern Iowa, and into Minnesota, allowing that area to continue to have an open window to get fieldwork opportunities done. Your big range was to the south of there over the weekend. Large portion of the hard red winter wheat belt and into southwestern sections of the Corn Belt, seeing widespread, significant, even locally heavy rains over the weekend period. Certainly the vast majority of that rainfall, even for the southwestern Corn Belt, highly beneficial in nature. Early morning radars continuing to show widely scattered rainfall activity in both the western and the eastern Corn Belt. As far as crop progress report expectations for this afternoon, I'm looking for a national corn planting progress figure of 80 to 81% done. For next week's figure, 90 to 91% done. Both of those figures will be very close to last year and also close to the 5-year average. As far as the forecast is concerned, next real solid rainfall event that one can note for the Corn Belt, probably coming up for about 7 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. You can see that there is some model agreement among the European model there in the upper left, GFS model upper right, Canadian operational model bottom left, European ensemble in the bottom right. Some decent model agreement that we would be starting to see some significant rains on a fairly widespread basis beginning for tomorrow night in the northwestern Corn Belt, with that rain event lasting for at least a couple days beyond that. As we get to 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, it is at that time that we will probably start to see a tropical system of some nature start to be impacting at least southern and southeastern portions of the nation. You can see where the European model has it at that time. GFS model kind of tough to pick out a center, but they do have kind of a broad area of low pressure at the surface at that time. Canadian model has a more vigorous storm system as normal. I think you can just kind of eliminate the Canadian model at that time. European ensemble, a broad area of low pressure in the Gulf of Mexico at that time. So it's a storm system that for late this week, if it does get a name, I would think that it would have a category category of no worse than a weak tropical storm system at that time. How it evolves, lots of model differences this morning. If we go out to the very end of the 10-day forecast period, you can see that both the GFS and the European model still have the system largely still not moving a whole lot from when it makes landfall on Saturday morning. This is as of late in the day on May 30th, and you can see that the European model still has some semblance of a surface low from the tropical system, still at that time over southwestern Louisiana, so really very little movement in that storm system at that time from versus where the model had it on Saturday morning. GFS model, a broad area of weak low pressure at the surface at that time. Even the Canadian model the same way. European ensemble kind of difficult to pick out a surface low at that time. So a situation where we're probably going to be seeing a tropical system influencing southern and southeastern portions of the nation for very late this week and possibly for several days beyond that. How that system evolves exactly is going to be determinant on how exactly the rainfall situation sets up. This is from the European model for the next 10 days. And you can see that with the European model bringing the system ashore for around this Saturday morning and then basically parking it over the Louisiana area for the remainder of the 10-day forecast period, it's pretty easy to see why that model is breaking out such big rains along the Gulf Coast and into the Louisiana area for the 10-day time frame. As far as other areas in the nation are concerned, you can see the rains that are indicated for the northwestern Corn Belt, and again the bulk of that rainfall starting for tomorrow night and lasting for several days beyond that. For eastern portions of the Corn Belt, that rainfall largely occurring there on a scattered basis throughout much of the 10-day forecast period. You can see that for the hard red winter wheat belt, some additional rain is going to be falling for especially the next few days, but easily for the hard red winter wheat belt, the vast majority of the good rains are now behind us. Temperature-wise, again, a very warm forecast for the next 10 days to 2 weeks, even warmer than it looked like yesterday, as I'll explain in just a moment. High temperatures in the Corn Belt for this Monday. Still some relatively cool conditions in western and northern areas, but the southeast is going to be quite warm again for this Monday. Then we'll see all of the nation's midsection returning to above normal temperatures for tomorrow, and that warm temperature regime will last through at least the end of this month and into the early portion of June. This is a high temperature forecast from Friday. You can see that for the Corn Belt, widespread 80 to 90 degree temperatures, some portions of the far south and southwest getting in to the 90 plus degree range. Lots of 90 plus degree temperatures on Friday as well for the southern plains. And again, as I mentioned, the models longer term are no longer indicating any moderation in temperatures for the very end of this month. This is temperature anomalies for May 30th. If you remember from yesterday's video at that time, the models in general, but especially the GFS ensemble, had a pretty big area of normal or even below normal temperatures for May 30th in eastern portions of the nation. But you can see that for today, a really good model agreement that cooling is no longer going to be indicated. Certainly not the warmest weather regime that we've ever seen at that time, but still a big portion of the nation looking at above normal temperatures at that time. So again, emphasizing that moderation in temperatures really no longer indicated for the final days of this month, so that for the most part, once temperatures return to above normal levels for tomorrow across a big portion of the nation, that warmth largely looks to last through the opening 4 days of June and quite possibly even longer than that. Internationally this morning, a 2-week forecast that features pretty easily below normal rainfall across the bulk of the Safrina corn areas of Brazil. A lot of Mato Grosso, northern Mato Grosso do Sul into Goiás, Bahia, Minas Gerais, looking at little or nothing in the way of rainfall for the next 2 weeks. Any rainfall in that time frame confined to southern Mato Grosso do Sul and into Paraná. A little bit of that rain falling as early as Friday. Most of that rain falling very late in the 6 to 10 day period and into the 11 to 15 day time frame. You can see that even that rainfall would be indicative of below normal rainfall for the next 2 weeks in that area. Over in Europe and the former Soviet Union, wanted to point out that there was some spotty areas of nice rains over the weekend in some portions of the winter grain area of the former Soviet Union. You can see in that area that I just circled there that there were a handful of locations seeing rainfall amounts of over a half inch or even more than an inch. As far as the 2-week forecast is concerned, I think that today's forecast for the winter grain areas of the former Soviet Union has to be considered as drier, with a big part of that area now looking at below normal rainfall during the next 2 weeks. The area there that I'm kind of circling that would be suggestive to see near to above normal rainfall during the next 2 weeks is an area that's going to see most of their rainfall during the next 24 hours before they too go into very limited rainfall for the next 2 weeks. In Europe, you can see that generally a below normal rainfall regime northeast and near to above normal rainfall regime in the southwest is indicated for the next 2 weeks. For the Canadian prairies, some decent quarter to three-quarter inch rains for southeastern portions of Saskatchewan and into Manitoba for late in this work week period. Otherwise, the rainfall forecast there for the next week does not feature much rain at all. There is some increase in the rainfall forecast today for the second week of the 2 week forecast for the Canadian prairies. Not sure if I really want to buy into that just yet, but again, I will note that the forecast today has trended a little bit wetter in the second week of the 2 week forecast for the Canadian prairies. Certainly plenty of warmth in the forecast there for the next week to 10 days. You can see the temperature anomalies there on Thursday indicating a big area of 10 to 20 degree above normal temperatures for the Canadian prairies for this Thursday. Finishing things up this morning in Australia, one of the wetter forecasts that we've seen for Australia in quite some time. Even with that said, eastern areas still looking at below normal rainfall for the next 2 weeks, but it is in the second week of the 2 week forecast, especially in the 11 to 15 day time frame when some of those eastern wheat areas of Australia may start to see a little bit of rainfall. In the west, still looking at a situation where they can see normal rainfall during the next 2 weeks, with a lot of that normal rainfall coming up for this Thursday when especially western portions of the wheat areas of Western Australia will see some nice rainfall amounts. That's what I have for this morning. Everyone have themselves a great day.